Welcome to the first episode of ScoobCast. So I've got a keyboard, and that's all I have. And also, this is a really goddamn scuffed setup. So don't expect me to be looking at the webcam most of the time. So yeah, this is going to be the ScoobCast for the most part. It's just pretty much me going to be talking in an empty attic with one side of the room being very dark. And occasionally, you know what? Maybe I'll not be talking to myself like a schizophrenic and I'll actually be talking to other people through Discord. So I guess this first episode more serves as kind of an introduction and kind of a baseline for what this podcast series will be. So I guess if you haven't seen my Discord server announcements, I guess I'll explain kind of what this will be about. So the ScoobCast will be a solo podcast primarily for myself to just talk about stuff. So it could be a wider range of topics, but I will definitely be talking about more recent events, but also just kind of talk about stuff that I think would be funny to mention. So pretty much it could be very recent events. So for example, let's talk about the Chris Chan situation. Now, if you don't know who Chris Chan is, then whatever. It's good that you don't know, I guess, because he's a very interesting person. I don't really know how to describe him. It's kind of like if there's a rock bottom, Chris Chan's way past it. So he's kind of someone who, well, he didn't really have a good childhood, but he had internet access. And of course, when you have a bad childhood and internet access, it leads to some very interesting personalities, I guess. So Chris Chan, I'd argue, is probably one of the most documented people, either in internet history or even history in general. Just, there's a lot we know about his personal life, and it's so interesting how we know so much about him. But if you did manage to hear about what Chris Chan did recently and have no idea who he is, I guess I'll just say it bluntly. I just voice cracked there. Isn't that really funny? You're going to probably expect a lot of voice cracks in these podcasts until I'm like 18 years old. So isn't that going to be very funny? Also expect a lot of audio bugs in case my microphone just cuts out. So yeah, you're going to have to deal with them. So just get rid of that. So Chris Chan decided to do his mom, literally. Unfortunately, that's probably not the best way to say it, but he did his mom. And I think what makes it worse is that his mom has dementia, and she's only 80 years, not only, she is 80 years old. God, I can hear the amount of audio bugs that are currently going on. This is already a mess. Oh, Jesus Christ. This is what happens when you have a scuffed setup. It took me a while to get this set up. And I mean, if you can see this, that's where my mic stand is. And this is where the table is to put up the mic stand, because the table I'm putting this laptop on does not work for this mic stand. All right. I think this actually might be a good angle. All right. So yeah, Chris Chan decided to do incest with his dementia-ridden mom, and she can remember enough that she can say no to Chris's advances. Now, so if you guys know about who Chris Chan is, you know that he or she, and as I say that because I'm going to just keep saying he or she because I'm either going to get canceled on Twitter, or if I say what I really think about this, then it's going to get me canceled on Twitter. So I don't know. I'm just gonna say they or he or she. So Christine or Chris Chan, I just like calling him or her Chris Chan because that's kind of who we know him as, or her. So yeah, Chris Chan decided to have incest with his mom, and well, unfortunately, it's just really disgusting, quite honestly. You know, there's a lot of bad things you can do in this world. And Chris Chan, as a person, was already at rock bottom. If anything, he was actually beyond it, as I said earlier. But somehow he went beyond that. So it's kind of interesting to just, you know, check Twitter one day. You know, expect a lot of political stuff, expect people calling each other retards in the Twitter replies. But then you see Chris Chan trending on Twitter. And then you try and figure out why he's trending on Twitter, assuming that you already know who he is. And then when you find out the truth, after people are saying, Chris Chan did what to his mom? And then you're like, huh. It's pretty interesting, I guess. Expect a lot of awkwardness from these podcasts because I voice crack. I go silent because I'm trying to think of the next thing to say. I mean, I'm trying to be funny, but how do you be funny in this world and in this day and age? Because problem is, if saying one thing could get me canceled on Twitter. So what if I were to delete Twitter? Because I've seen a lot of bad things on Twitter. And as I've said on my own Twitter page, I'm going to delete it after my 1000th tweet. Because quite frankly, I don't think anyone should use Twitter. Anyone with like any kind of sound of mind should use it. There are so many bad things that I could list about it, but I'd have to write like literally just a Bible of like sins that Twitter has committed. So it's just not a place that healthy people should go to. And you may ask, oh, well, Zoink, you seem like a healthy person, so why are you on Twitter then with that logic? Well, quite frankly, I don't know, but I guess I like to see chaos just in its pure form, which that's Twitter. Now, I've already made my own video on Twitter. There's a lot of static right now. Jesus Christ. Oh, this is going to be so great when I have guests and stuff, and I'm going to be like, and it's like going to be, it's going to be doing that. Oh my God, me adjusting my mic is just going to be funnier than me making actual jokes in this goddamn series. Jesus Christ. So I gotta say, yeah, Twitter is not a place anyone should go to. But of course, a lot of people go there. And by a lot of people, I mean a lot of mentally insane people. So ever notice how nowadays a lot of the really insane and messed up stuff seems to come from Twitter? Well, that's no coincidence. Because for whatever reason, I think I didn't mention this in my Twitter video because I didn't actually really think about it, but the mass exodus of Tumblr when it was still popular, and then, you know, they started banning porn and all that just because they had to. So the users migrated to Twitter and other social medias, but primarily Twitter. And that brought with us a lot of the crazy, insane people. And those crazy, insane people became even more insane because, well, I don't know. I mean, just something about Twitter seems to just make these people more insane. I don't know how to say or describe. Well, sometimes this mic works fine and sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. See, this is what I worry about when I record videos. It just does not work. Maybe I should go right here. Nope, it does not work either way. That's so funny. You know, most of these episodes of me doing stuff on myself is just gonna be like, shit, man. All right. So I think that people who do terrible stuff on Twitter or have done terrible things or just say a lot of weird stuff and just quite frankly make everyone uncomfortable, I think that they should break their keyboards. I think that they should delete their internet and then go outside and touch grass. Now, that's already been said enough already, but even when these people go outside, they still make people uncomfortable. So it begs the question, what's the point of having these people exist? They seem to just exist to make everyone uncomfortable. So, unfortunately, people like Christian can become those people. Now, I don't know how often Christian goes outside, but whenever he does go outside, I can imagine people just looking at him, seeing his necklace and his like Sonitude necklace thing, and they're just looking at him like, or him or her. I apologize. I'm gonna have to say that a lot whenever I mention Christian. You know, that's kind of the problem because since Christian decided to identify as trans, it's brought a lot of problems in terms of inviting people who are transphobic, inviting people who aren't transphobic but don't really see him as trans, given how he seems he doesn't seem trans. And I want to kind of talk about that. So there seems to be a rumor for Christian's arrest that he won't actually be arrested or locked in jail. Or this is just a rumor, but basically, since he or she identifies as trans, the laws of Virginia, which is where he is, do not apply to his situation or her situation because he or she is trans. But the problem is, I'm pretty sure that it only applies to people who have gotten bottom surgery. But from what we know, Christian has not done that. And from what we know as well, which we know a lot because Christian's life is so well documented, we know that Christian never actually identified as trans for the purpose of, thinking that they're actually trans, but rather just to get with women who are lesbians, which brings up the problem. So I was thinking about this a lot, and I don't want to talk about this too much, given that I'd probably get canceled and people are going to get mad at me, but this is a podcast where I talk about stuff. So do I give a shit? A little bit, just a little. So I have a trans friend. I'm not going to list their name, but if they do watch my videos, they probably know who I'm talking about. And I decided to ask her about like this situation and what to label Christian as. And she told me to label Christian or Christine by her pronouns. So, yeah, she just bluntly told me to do that. And she just said, end of discussion right there. And whatever, I don't care. It's her opinion, whatever. But of course, I like to approach things from a moderate, centrist, or I guess rational perspective. And I guess, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Maybe I should respect people's pronouns, no matter how shitty they are, and even if they don't even properly identify as trans. But I don't know. Maybe it's just because I feel like I'm rational in some ways that I don't feel like I want to do that. Because it's almost like this guy or woman, however you prefer to, label them. Jesus Christ, this is glitching out. All right. Ooh. Did you know that it's hot up here? Well, I just turned down the thermostat there, but previously it was like 80 degrees up here. You don't even have to walk around much, just begin sweating. Anyways, back to what I was talking about. Jesus Christ. Oh, this is my problem. I apologize. It's hard making a good podcast. Unless you have a good mic, I guess. But I need to get a good table. All right. So I decide to not really label Chris Chan as his or her preferred pronouns because I I like to think that since he's not actually trans because he thinks that he's trans or her, I don't really want to respect them. Now, look, I want to say that to any trans people who are somehow watching this podcast, I would just like to say that I totally respect trans people. Unfortunately, Chris Chan is not really a trans person, and he's not really a good person. So it's kind of hard to label him or her by the proper pronouns when, I mean, in the first place, he was never really trans. So it's just kind of hard to talk about it because, I mean, I'd rather be more focused on the fact that he raped his mom who has dementia. But sure, misgendering someone who raped his mom is apparently a more pressing issue, I guess, but whatever. Yeah, cool. I think that's the problem nowadays. You know, people are just a little bit too focused on the more less important issue that lies before a main issue, which I guess that's pretty much just only Twitter. I mean, it really seems like Twitter just has that problem. I mean, like on Facebook, I mean, you're just being spied on, you're dealing with crazy conservatives or whatever else, but it's not on the same level as Twitter. So, yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about that Chris Chan thing, but personally, I just do not want to label him by his pronouns or her pronouns. Just because, I mean, I'm not going to respect the pronouns of a person who isn't actually a trans person. I'm going to have to keep repeating that. I'm gonna get canceled for it, Twitter, but it's a lose-lose, I guess, in some ways. All right. Now, that's a pretty main issue I want to talk about because, man, that has been on fire recently. I mean, a lot of Christorians, quite frankly, they've said that this is probably a peak in Chris history, or Christory, as they say, given that, I mean, how can you top literally raping your own mother? But the thing is, though, this is all an accusation. And it was confessed by Chris Chan. So this could not be true. It's possible that it may just be fake. But Chris Chan is just not the type of person to fake these type of things. I feel like he would actually do it. Or her. Or she would actually do it. So, quite frankly, I believe it. I just want to test out how bad the mic is. Yeah, it's a little bit sucky that we have to deal with these issues firsthand. Hopefully this is functional enough. Because on my end, I hear a lot of audio issues.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name. But I'm afraid you've been misinformed.
Oh, something just happened.
You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you